It'll have to convince a lot of players to come out, and the fact that you're coming to these events will put a lot of players off, Barry. No, that's not true. No, that's not true. Anyway, look, first thing I have to say is congratulations to you for getting back on the tour.
Yeah,
you know, you're getting on, you're coming off, on and off and on and off. You're making my head spin. You know, I just don't, but like, it's always good to see an old man getting back on the tour again. And you are an old man, and listen, we're going to touch on that as well for this short interview. All right.
Yeah,
we're also going to talk about, we're going to talk about yourself getting on this time again. And we're also going to talk about give us some feedback on the format and how you feel about the Q School situation at the moment in that regard. So go ahead, run us through it.
Well, I mean, I just think I think it was there's a lot of frustration out there with the format, especially this year, because there wasn't, I think Dean Young was the only guy to get a tour card who hadn't been on tour before. But I mean, I think there's two things that really come into play here, and that is that obviously the amateurs haven't had anything to play in, this year at all with COVID. And that's put them at a disadvantage, obviously, because they haven't been active, and a lot of them wouldn't even have been active actually practicing because clubs are shut down. So, unless like me, they had a table that was accessible to them all the time, then they wouldn't have been probably in pick up a queue for 6 months. So they were at a huge disadvantage there. And I mean, there was seeding this year again, which I've always felt there should be seeding at Q School. I actually put that idea forward last year on the World Snooker Players Forum, which doesn't exist anymore. But I put that idea forward because year after year after year, you just see two guys playing each other, with no disrespect to those guys, in round one. And then you get two top guys who are, contenders to getting a tour card, and they're playing each other in round one as well. And I just think seeding is just something you should do. And I think the way they did it, using the order of merit from Q School and the guys who dropped off tour was perfectly that was the way to do it. I think not seeding Q School to me was just always a nonsense. So I think those two things, conspired to put the amateurs on the back foot, especially the amateurs who haven't been on the tour before. But I think there is this feeling out there that where are the young players aren't getting through and this and that. And I've said it numerous times, this isn't a sport anymore, and it hasn't been for a few years now, where a lad is going to come through at 17, 18 and start winning ranking events like Ronnie did, and Paul Hunter, Mark Williams, John Higgins. Those guys, they won tournaments really young. That kids not going to do that anymore because it's just so difficult. The tour is just really hard. It's hard to get on there, let alone with only 128 pros. I do worry a bit that some of these young kids who are good players, especially perhaps some of the overseas players who aren't getting on, are they going to keep playing the game? Snooker wants to try and broaden its horizons and tap into other foreign countries. If those young players pack up playing snooker because it's too hard to even get on the tour in the first place, that's not a good thing, is it? And I'm worried that might happen, because it's really, I didn't expect to get through Q School, and I don't think there's anybody who can go to Q School and think that they've got better than a 50% chance of getting through Q School. And that the best player there on paper was Michael White, and he was the best player there. But as twice he's attempted Q School, he fell just short the first time and just short this time. And it's just difficult. And it's 3 tournaments, best of 7s. Even with seeding, it's not. People say the cream always rises to the top. Well, it perhaps will do eventually, but you could spend another 4 or 5 years trying to get through Q School, even if you're one of the top amateurs and you get through, minimum. It just depends if you've got the stickability to keep at it, because some kids will I think they'll say, look, I can't even get on the tour, I'm going to quit. How can I possibly get on? It's just so difficult. So I just hope that doesn't happen, and maybe they need to think about opening the tour up slightly, give another 32 places or something on the tour. I don't know what the answer is, but it's not. Q School is very difficult, very difficult.
Boss, just going back to Michael, we touching on the subject of Michael White. I mean, do you think Michael thought he played well enough to get back on the tour, and was he the best player? I mean, what do you think his view on this? I mean, he didn't get through.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't really know Michael that well. I always sort of nod my head and say hello. We've known each other for a few years, but I mean, I'm just saying he was the best player in his that he's relatively recently been in the top 16. He won a couple of ranking events, so I don't think anyone would argue that he wasn't the best. I mean, I played him and he didn't play particularly well. I did play well and he didn't, and I had a good run of the ball. So. I don't know what his thoughts are, whether he feels he should really get through Q School. But my feeling is that anybody who goes there, whoever it is, they haven't got anything better than a 50% chance to get back on statistically. If you were a bookmaker laying odds, then I don't think anybody's better than nobody's odds on to get back on the tour, in my opinion. I felt like I have about a 35-40% chance at best to get back on. That's my feeling. I might be wrong about that. It's sometimes hard to quantify those sort of things. But you've got to win five matches to get back on, and they're all going to be tough. They're all going to be banana skins. Every match I played was a banana skin game, and Michael White I'm odds against. Sanderson Lamb probably 50-50. So tough. And the first 2 games weren't easy either. First 3 games or whatever, they weren't easy. Dan Wormsley, that's not an easy game, but it's just really difficult. And like I say, my biggest fear is for the young kids, because you're not going to be good enough at 16, 17 to storm through Q School. Nobody is. It's just not going to happen. So are they going to be able to stick with it and spend 4 or 5 years as an amateur, and the amateur scene isn't overflowing with tournaments? Having said that, of course, we had no tournaments last season. I think that's the reason why people are really frustrated. Had there been a Q Tour last season, or a Challenge Tour, I don't think there'd have been this frustration at all, even if the amateurs hadn't got through. But certainly in this country, I know you're doing a good job with getting more pro-ams going, but it would be great to see the amateur game, a bit more, a few more tournaments and a bit more money. But it's tough to get sponsorship and stuff for things like that, isn't it?
The thing is, Barry, the thing is here, and I know I go on about this sometimes when we do these streams, but the thing is, let's have a look at the quality we've got here. I mean, do we have enough good players to make a living on the tour, for one thing? I mean, let's just take a little look at who got through here. We got players like Peter Lanes, Fraser, yourself, Craig Steadman, Dwayne Jones, Ian Burns, quality players that have struggled to make money, just like yourself. They've struggled to make money. So what does that tell us? What does that tell us? Off the tour, straight back on again. They know they have to find that extra something in their game to move them up the rankings.
I think a big part of that, Dave, is 3 words, and I think that's prize money distribution.
Oh.
I think if the prize money was distributed a bit further down, a bit better, I think it's very top heavy in snooker. If you look at golf and tennis, which I have, if you look at the percentage of money that goes up the top, it's bigger in snooker than it is in golf and tennis. So I know golf and tennis are in a different world as how much they earn, but if you look at the guy who's ranked 50 and 100 in golf and tennis, proportionally what they earn compared to the guy ranked 10 is a lot more in golf and tennis than it is in snooker. Because we've had this discussion before, or it's been on the internet. First round losers don't get anything. And I never thought that that's really right. We're always playing for £5,000 to the winner, or a 0 to the runner-up, or £3,000 to the winner, zero to the loser. Why don't you just go 4,000, 1,000 or something? You know, that guarantee players 15 grand, 10 or 10 or 15,000 before they hit a ball. And this would take a pressure off a lot of the lower players as well. I'm not saying they shouldn't be under pressure, but, you know, I don't think the prize money is distributed, I mustn't say fairly, but it's very, very top heavy in snooker, extremely, especially the first round where they're playing for, you know, a fair amount of money. And it could just be, instead of going 100% to the winner, 0 to the loser, you just go 80-20, 80% to the winner, 20% to the loser. But, you know, I know that's always been something that Barry Hearn hasn't agreed with, and I'm not one to ever to criticise Barry Hearn particularly, because he definitely saved the game, and I helped get him on the board back in 2010. So, or get him took over the game, but that's something for World Snooker. I can't do anything about that. You know, that's something for World
Snooker. Barry's out and Eddie's in, or they're having the exchange as we're speaking. So, do you think Eddie is could bring something new? Is he interested in making some changes, perhaps with working with Jason in that respect? Yeah, and I think after feedback like this, it's definitely something I need to consider.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I don't know whether now Barry's sort of Barry Hearn's obviously not that sort of, you know, he's sort of semi-retired or whatever. Whether they'll look at changing it, you know. But I just think, you know, people often say, "Oh, players aren't earning anything. Look, why aren't they earning anything? There's not enough money to go around. Cut the tour numbers." You know, I think if you cut the tour numbers, that would be suicidal. If you cut the tour numbers, how's a young player ever going to get to be a pro? I mean, it's hard enough now. You know, if you cut the turn numbers to 6, people are saying cut the turn numbers to 64. I mean, it's just a total commercial, got to be commercially suicidal. You know, you're isolating a lot of good, you know, you're going to throw loads of more overseas players off the tour, people like Igor, more Chinese players, some good, you know, good perhaps European players. Then they, you know, I mean, to have 64 players on the tour would be madness. People say, well, then the people outside the 64 can earn money. They, you know, people can still earn good money if the prize money was distributed. I could get that prize money list, look at that for 10, probably 15 minutes, and guarantee everyone £15,000. No danger. I mean, it'd be easy. It'd be easy. I've looked at it. You know, but whether it's whether the powers that be and the people who slice the cake up are willing to do that. You know, it's up to them.
I think, you know, Barry, about a year ago, I probably would have disagreed with you on this, but I'm sort of swinging your way on this one. That you know, I was always one for thinking that the reason why a lot of the maybe 30 or so players on the tour are not making enough money is because they're not good enough, and there's no business there. For that reason, there's too many professionals on the tour. Am I actually siding with you on this? I'm actually saying that prize fund distribution should be reconsidered and remanaged, that there should be something there for them. So yeah. I'm actually going on this one. We don't always agree on things, Barry, and you get on my nerves at times. All right, but I'm going to go with you on this one. All right. Yeah.
I mean, all you'd be slicing a bit off that. Well, you don't even need to slice anything off the top. That's the thing. You just need to alter that first round prize money, really. That's what you need. You know, I mean, you know, I didn't win many matches last year at all. Didn't play awful actually, and you know, didn't earn peanuts. But people look at that, and you look at Riley Parsons. He when he got on the tour, he was 18. He's had 2 years. He's barely earned a penny. If he'd have just been guaranteed 500 quid, you know, to £1,000 each first match, he still wouldn't have been earning a good living as such. But he'd have had enough to you know, easily pays the expenses now on the snooker tour absolute minimal. If you don't win any matches, you know, drive to a qualifier, get a hotel room, you lose and you come back. That's your expenses, unless you get to China or something like that. But if you get to China, you're already on 5,000 quid, so then you pay £700 for your flight or whatever. So the expenses aren't as bad as some people make out. I know that for a fact. But if you know, especially if you give someone like Riley Parsons, who's a young player, probably isn't swimming in money, you know, if you give him a guarantee of a bit of money if he loses, then that takes a lot of pressure off him as well. You might even see him win more matches just because of that reason. You know, that's probably not going to make. I mean, I'm not a millionaire, but I'm not absolutely, you know, desperate to win cash, but everybody wants to win. But you get someone who's a young kid who needs to actually win. He's got a young baby, right? Riley has, just using him as an example. If he was guaranteed £500 to £1,000 for losing his first match, I'm sure you'd see him perform a lot better. But if he's playing someone ranked 30 in the world or even 40 in the world who doesn't really need the money that badly, then obviously the guy higher ranked guy's under barely any pressure compared to Riley, because someone like Riley or a young kid who isn't earning any money, not guaranteed any money, they're bang under it to start with. So this is another issue that perhaps people don't think about, but like I say, I can't do anything about it, but I think it's harsh, and I think, like I say, if you gave anyone that prize money list, they could easily redistribute that prize money, and the lower players would be earning minimum 10 to 15,000 a year. Minimum, bare minimum, guaranteed.
Absolutely right. We need to look at ways of how we can distribute and develop opportunities for the younger players or the players at the lower end of the tour who are really struggling. And we're actually going to, just for some of you lads who are watching this, there's not very many of you watching this now, but you watch this a bit later on YouTube or on the stream, then we're actually going to do a live stream on this, on how to develop players on the tour and off the tour, and ways we can improve their prize funds. So I think there's a good subject there, Barry. I think you will agree to do a live stream on. Anyway, I was hoping to get this video down to about 10 minutes, Barry, but as usual, just like Henry, you just go on and on and on and on. I'll probably shut you up. But just before we go, Baz, I want to talk about you for a second. Obviously, you're back on the tour again. Yeah, another lease of life. Call it whatever you like. What are your plans? How are you gonna try and improve some areas of your game? What would you like to do? What do you need to find?
Well, I mean, it's funny, Dave, because I texted a guy, a coach who I knew from the 1980s. Actually, he's called and he was a very good player, Roger Layton, and he coaches a lot of the Chinese kids. And before, when I was in Q School after the first event, I got him. I asked him a question regarding my technique and sort of alignment wise, really, and I asked him a question about my setup and my pre-shot routine, and he gave me a pointer, and that really actually helped me. And it was only a little thing, but I think that really helped me, and I did. It was difficult to adjust the first couple of matches, but after that, I started to sort of do it more natural, and I think that's really actually helped my sort of my alignment. So that's been a big thing for me, I think, and that might. I mean, who knows? That might. I actually feel as if I'm quite looking forward to the first event, whereas all of last year and the year before I was still tinkering around and messing around and stuff, and I've been doing it for years. But if I do get problems, I'm gonna immediately go and see either him or another coach, because I've tried to sort of self-analyze far too much over the years. So, and I think, I don't think age is a barrier in snooker. I think you look at the, Ronnie John Higgins and Mark Williams, if they want to keep going until they're in their 50s, mid-50s, in my opinion, they'll still be at the top of the game then, if they want to keep there, because, snooker is a game where you I don't think you ever stop learning about the game in a way, and I think that's not to the detriment of the youngsters, because the game has changed immensely since I was a kid. I've said many times on Facebook, when I was a kid, I won the English Amateur at 17 years old. Because really and truthfully, the amateur game was really strong, but they were all youngsters playing in the amateur game. They were all, probably 16 to 25, the best amateurs. They were, there wasn't an amateur over 25 who could compete with the young guys, not even close. Now it's tipped the other way. The guys ranked 16 to 25, they're up against it because they've got all these players who've been playing tough professional snooker for years, who are still amateurs, still trying to get through Q School. We didn't have that. We had a real lot of good young players, but there were no good old players. The older pros, quite frankly, were just guys who were part-timers and if you played one of them, you beat them 5-0, 10-0 when you turned professional. You know, they weren't. They were the guys who were playing snooker in the 60s and 70s. You know, probably a couple of times a week in a social club somewhere. You know, so that's and they you know, so it's a completely different. It's flipped on its head from when I was a kid. You know, I can remember Stephen Hendry saying, "Oh, snooker players will be finished by the time they're 30." You know, because it was perceived to be a young man's game. You know, but you can be good when you're young, but you know, it's difficult to get to. I think, you know, 20, 25, 26 will be the sort of the new 17, 18. You know, it's going to take the kids a long time before they get to their best, and to break through is going to be harder for them because the older guys are just very good. You know, they're really good players, and there's some very, like I say, there's some very good young players out there. There really is, but it's just really difficult for them. You know, and Luke's my son's one of them. Luke, he's coming on along nicely, but there's a dozen players like Luke on the Premier Tour. They're all a similar level on the under-21 junior tour in England. They're all a similar level, all very good players, and but they're just up against a lot of older good players.
Well, I think with snooker, Barry, as you said, you never stop trying. You're always learning.
Yeah,
and that's just part of a very natural progression in this very, very difficult sport. Just before we go, Barry, just to mention there to Elliot West, who's one of our best editorial guys, does pieces on snooker all the time. Elliot, I'm going to be tagging your link to your recent editorial there on this subject matter, actually. Okay, I just haven't got around to doing it, but I wanted to wait till I did this video with Barry so I can hook it up, and then everybody can read your piece and then listen back to these two old men who don't know anything more about snooker apart from back on the tour again. Barry, stay on the line there. I was just going to say goodbye to everybody. Thanks very much for joining us on this short interview that you've destroyed.